What is up, my friends? You are very welcome along to Sunday night's late night news roundup, where we may have a bit of a blow to our chances to sign Alexander Isak, at least if this report is correct. I'll take you through that, the very latest around our situation with Marc Guehi, Ibrahim Konate, and the club that are interested in signing him, and lots more over the next few minutes. But of course, I do want to know your thoughts. Let me know in the comment section. Drop a like in the video if you enjoy it, and of course, I would love you to hit that subscribe button. So as I mentioned, I have a lot to go through. I will move on to the ISAK story in a minute, but before I do, just a little bit on Hugo Ekitike, because I read an interesting bit on Sky that talked about his role models, and he said growing up there were two players that he idolised, Neymar and Karim Benzema. I love Benzema and what he did for football. He is my role model. So there we go. Let's see if you can see any similarities over his time at Liverpool with Karim Benzema, of course, who had a fantastic career, or still has a fantastic career. But interesting to hear that from Hugo Ekitike. Bit of a mixed bag on Federico Chiesa and on his future. I mentioned to you guys in the earlier video that there was a report in Italy that said, I think it was Football Gazzetta Italia, that said he's unsellable now and he's been told that by Liverpool. Well, this report says a little bit differently. Italian sports journalist or Sport Italia journalist Alfonso Ciciasia has claimed that Federico Chiesa could yet move to Italy this summer, with AC Milan retaining an interest in him. They went on to say increasingly frequent contact between Milan and the agent of Chiesa. The Italian forward could be a real cherry on top of the Rossinieri's transfer market. So, I don't know. Again, mixed messaging here, and I guess we'll find out in 2 weeks' time if Chiesa is still at the club or not. If he's not, then we need another player brought in, at least two forwards between now and the end of the window. You could maybe even make that argument already. So, let's talk about Konate, because, well, a couple of things floating around tonight that I want to bring to your attention, both coming out of Spain. One of them from Mundo Deportivo, who said that Real Madrid are still sniffing around for him, and £34 million would be enough maybe this summer, they write. The Reds are in need of more centre-backs, and Arne Slot, of course, will want to tighten up our defence. Another one, though, this is the shock one for me, and it comes from Sempre Barca, who say that Konate is of interest to, well, you've guessed it, Barcelona. That is a crazy one. Despite being linked with Real Madrid, the defender is now also being touted as an option for Barcelona and a move to the Nou Camp, particularly, I think, on a free transfer. So all of this makes me again question what is happening with Konate. We cannot let this situation go past the end of the window. If Konate and Liverpool can't come to an agreement, surely we have to move for Marc Guehi and look to sell him before the window closes. But again, your thoughts on this are very much welcome. I want to bring you some comments now from Anthony Gordon ahead of the game between Liverpool and Newcastle, which is a week tomorrow. Anthony Gordon said, I think with everything that's gone on, I'm sure the atmosphere is going to be wild. I'm excited to see the home fans again, to get back in the stadium. It's going to be a top game. It is. And it kind of got us thinking about the 11 that Arne Slot should go with in tonight's late night agenda. Now, I said I would start Andy Robertson instead of Milos Kerkez, not because of a form thing. It's an experience thing for me. What we don't want going into this game are early yellow cards or rash challenges. And we'd seen that obviously Milos very keen to impress on his Anfield debut, or competitive Anfield debut. And he got himself an early yellow, and then, of course, was eventually taken off for Andy Robertson. I would probably lean into experience going into this game, and I would maybe even consider whether I start Wirtz in the game or bring him off the bench later. Again, not because of how we performed yesterday, but just because of the experience of the league and the environment that we're going into. It's going to be a difficult one, and we need to be prepared mentally. So, may not have or may have escaped your attention, or it may not, but Marc Guehi seemingly blanked Oliver Glasner earlier on. If you haven't seen the clip, maybe go and have a look at it. I think Anfield Sector have it posted up on their account, but you can see the player walking off the pitch and the manager about 15, 20 yards away, trying to get his attention, shouting over to him on multiple occasions. Guehi doesn't turn around, and, well, Oliver Glasner's body language, it ain't great, and it, kind of paints a picture of unhappiness, and I don't know what's going on there, but certainly be interesting to see what happens with Marc Guehi. A report that I read from Sami Mokbel of the BBC suggested that Liverpool were going to start negotiations again with Crystal Palace tomorrow for that move. I can't see a world, even though it's been written about many places, I cannot see a world where Steve Parish lets him leave Crystal Palace for free. Surely you'd be better off taking £5 or £10 million less than letting a player walk out the door for free in a year's time. A club like Crystal Palace could do with 35 million quid. You know, respectfully, they're one of the, they're a Premier League stalwart, if you want to call them that, but they're not a huge cash generating club, and 35 million quid is 35 million quid. So the bad news tonight, at least the nervous news, I guess if you want to call it that, is a report from Transfer News Live, who are crediting Football Insider, and they say Chelsea striker Nicholas Jackson, and this isn't going to be ends up at Newcastle in this piece, if that's what you're waiting for me to say. They say Chelsea striker Nicholas Jackson has told those close to him that he wants to join Aston Villa this summer, and he's valued at around £60 million. Now, there have been numerous other reports previously that said he is open to the idea of a move to Newcastle. Now, it should also be said that we don't know factually here that Newcastle is 100% focused on him. But like I've said, I don't think Johan Visa is going to be enough personally to tempt Newcastle into selling, because they need to bring in another striker. Johan Visa for me is then replacing Callum Wilson. Nicholas Jackson was one of the names that had been thought to be of interest to Newcastle. Gonzalo Ramos was another one, and I'm almost certain he said that he's going to be staying in Paris. At least I think there were quotes attributed to him to say that. And this, if it is true, would be another huge blow to Newcastle if they wanted Jackson, and if this report is true. You know, what would be more appealing about Villa than Newcastle? I honestly don't know at this moment in time. Yes, Villa are a brilliant club, great manager in Unai Emery, but they aren't in the Champions League this season. Newcastle are. Villa have PSR problems that they've forced to be selling a few players over the years that maybe they wouldn't want to, Jacob Ramsey being one of them. So, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think on this one. Ollie Watkins still there. They do have a space, of course, since John Duran went over to play in the Saudi Pro League, but it would be a huge dent to our pursuit of ISAK if Newcastle had wanted Jackson, and if this report from Football Insider is correct. It could be a very chaotic last couple of weeks. And I guess the final thing I wanted to ask, and I asked this in tonight's stream as well, is if you were Liverpool, or you were Arne Slot, Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards, at what point do you end the conversation around the ISAK? What's the cut-off point? Is it a day after we play Newcastle next Monday, which is 5 or 6 days away from the window shutting? Can't go much further than that, because if we can't get ISAK and they hold their nerve, or, just won't budge, then we do need to find another player, because we are simply short of bodies in attack. And whether it's ISAK or somebody else, we got to get somebody, and we got to leave ourselves time to do it. And also, if we're going to a club to try to get somebody out, that club are probably going to want to bring in a replacement. So it's all getting a little bit chaotic. It's a bit of brinksmanship at this point, but let me know where you are with it, because I'm excited, but I'm nervous, and I can't help but think we've left ourselves a lot of work to do in the last 2 weeks, but maybe we pull a rabbit out of the hat. Let me know what you think in the comments, and tomorrow we will be back. As always, the podcast is going to be recorded tomorrow as well, so that'll be out for members tomorrow night at about 11 o'clock. Everybody else, it'll be out 11 a.m. on Tuesday morning. I'll be back tomorrow, 8:45. Until then, thank you for watching. Much love. We'll talk soon.